Gentlemen, welcome back to TLT Talks. We've got a hot topic today, something that comes up very often, something that some people have really found a way to master, and other people have found a way to neglect over and over again. And so today, we have a special guest for you. She will be on any second now. Sally is actually a consultant focusing on marketing, branding, and communications. She's formerly led Compass and Robert Refkin, all of their social media efforts. She's someone that we currently work with now on the Litvak team efforts. And so, Sally, if you want to just request and jump on, we would be happy to have a chat. There we go. There. My show, what do you say? Just 1 second, folks. Boom.
Oh,
Sally, how goes it? How goes it?
everything is great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. Well, I just finished giving a little bit of an intro, but why don't you share with the world, or I shouldn't say the world, I should say our viewers. Why don't you share with our viewers a little bit about yourself, some background, what you do, anything you want to share?
Sure. So I am based out of Jersey City in the tri-state area, formerly lived in New York, and I am currently a communications and marketing consultant. I know you mentioned Eugene right before I came on. My former role that I actually just got out of before completely being on my own with my consulting business was working for Compass for almost 5 years, the amazing Compass brand. And I had the pleasure of doing social media and content for Robert Refkin, the Compass founder and CEO, and then also for the Compass brand, leading all of the social media and content initiatives. So it's been really a pleasure now going off on my own post my experience with Compass. And
Uh-oh. We're having all sorts of technical difficulties. Sally, I don't know if you could hear me, but you have cut out entirely. Hold on. I think Sally's coming back. Technical difficulties. We need one of those bings. Bing, technical difficulties.
we're back.
There
The
we go.
of
There we
technology,
go.
the whole video ended on us, but we are back. Thank you, Eugene.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, the last thing we heard was that you had the pleasure of supporting Robert and Compass and building their brand.
Yes. And now I have my own consulting business. So I work with a multitude of industry leaders, executives, and brands. One of them being TLT, having the pleasure of working with you in the Litvak team, in a bunch of different industries, from real estate to technology, nonprofits, fashion. So it's a pleasure now being able to help brands grow and evolve and properly use platforms such as social media.
Amazing. And I can tell you that the brands certainly need it. All of the brands need some level of guidance or coaching or training. And I'm sure that working for Robert and working for Compass didn't keep you busy at all. I'm sure you were just like hanging out, twiddling your thumbs. All right, well on that, I think that's a great segue. Well on that. Sal, let me ask you this question. What is, people always talk about brand, right? Branding. What is a brand?
Sure. So I think of the best way to simplify thinking about it is your identity. All of us have a brand, whether we're aware of it or we're not. It's really what differentiates you as an individual, a thought leader, or your business. So anything from how you're communicating with your audience, your voice and tone, how you present yourself, style guides, your colors, how you carry yourself in your brand. Those are just some elements that make up what your brand is and branding as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in short, for yourself and for your business, it's your identity. It's how the world thinks of you. It's how, if you were to walk up to anyone that knows me, you'd say, what do you think, Eugene? Some words would come to mind. If you were to say the same of the Litvak team, some words would come to mind. And so to me, branding is like the active measures you take to influence those thoughts or those outcomes or whatever. So, back in the day, you and I were catching up about this a little bit before the show, and in general, I'm like a fossil in this industry now. I was in my early 20s, and it's not like they didn't talk about branding then. They did. They talked about you have to create a reputation and a brand and yada yada. Except back then, the vehicles or the critical drivers or the activities of creating a brand would look like you took out an ad in the New York Times it would look like you put your face and your, brand on a bus stop or on the train station or on a phone booth. It would look like you cold called everyone to let them know who you are and what you are. It was incredibly difficult and time consuming, and it was incredibly expensive. And today, there is a platform that is free 99, that is absolutely of no cost. And today, it's so simple to tell the story of whatever you want. So before I jump into my I guess let me ask you this question. You are absolutely the expert. We've really enjoyed working with you, and our focus has been social media. Why is it so important? What's your guidance to those people that are out there already using it, that maybe could evaluate, making it even better, or those folks, which I find, talk about, yeah, I should be on social media, but I don't know what to do or how to do it or whatever, and allow themselves to not get done. Why? I'm asking for your help. I'm asking for your help to sway the entire world, or anyone that's watching this, that they should be on social, that they should be working on their brand, even if they're not an entrepreneur. So why? Why is social media so important?
Absolutely. We'll talk the world. One thing I love to do with a lot of my clients is share statistics and data that is coming out from the industry. And Forbes had an interesting one recently that came out this year. There are 8 billion people in the world. 8.9 billion out of those 8 billion are actively on that. So if that doesn't tell you something right there, you're missing your audience. If you are not on a platform, they're actually expecting that number to go to around 5.85 billion by 2027. So people are on platforms. 90% of users, this is a really fun one, follow at least one brand on social media. You're not on there for your brand. You're missing your audience. You are missing touch points with your audience. And most people, they're always on their phones. That's when they tend to be on social media. We all have our little computer in our pockets now, and they spend a day on social media platforms, the average person. And so if you're not on there, you're missing your audience. You're missing that important moment to be able to engage with people, communicate with people, message with people, and really, to your point with branding, show off your brand and tell your story and be able to even share your product. That, to me, is one of, I think, the most important things. And lately, search engines, social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube are actually some of the highest used search engines now. And so it's amazing that people aren't just going to Google and looking something up, but they're actually going to social platforms and using the algorithm that information.
For sure. My God, we'll be having a conversation about something worldly, like a news event or whatever. What's your source? Oh, I saw it on TikTok. I saw it on Instagram. I saw it on Facebook. I saw it on YouTube. Like, you're rarely hearing like, oh, I saw it on CNN or I saw it on Talk or whatever. Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. And for those of you watching, if you're not in business for yourself, if you're not an entrepreneur, how difficult is it? Like, typically when we hire people, we ask them, the way to build your business is to make sure you expand your network. And so I usually ask, like, okay, cool, who's in your immediate family? Who is your friends and your acquaintances, yada, yada. And if you had a wedding, how many people would attend your wedding? And I usually get anywhere from 50 to 250. So let's call it in the middle. Let's call it 150 people. Let's say that you, as a regular person, you've got a regular job, you're not an entrepreneur, you're not looking for clients. Let's say you know 150 people. How do you stay in touch with 150 people?
Yeah.
It's like, so here's an opportunity to connect with people on a social platform, assuming they're on it as well. And it's like, yes, it's not going to be, let me be very clear. It's not going to be that deep level of communication. How are you doing? How's your day? Yeah. But you'll see like, oh, I saw you went to Mexico. How was that? And that can trigger the phone call. Oh, Mexico. Wow, how cool. And then you can have the deep conversation. So from the personal standpoint, just what an easy way to stay in touch in the lives of people. Just, keep them in your purview. From the perspective of business, it's like, so let's say you're first getting into the industry. The very first thing we teach is you've got to decide, and this is real estate like any other entrepreneurship, you've got to decide what's the kind of business you want to do. If it's real estate, let's say, do you want to do co-ops or condos, high level, high lux and high end or not? What do you want? And in the past, what you would have to do to build your business, you have to cold call, you have to call other agents to ask to get on their, listings, to work for free and host open houses, to do all these non-digital marketing, like we talked about the puzzle. And then when you spoke to people, the first interaction, you didn't really get a chance to interact with them before. But now on social media, you literally have the ability to go online and for free create a reputation. So like I got a friend that has zero experience in real estate, moved out to Florida, formerly used to own yoga studios, but had a big life change, just didn't want to do that anymore. Didn't I wasn't her passion anymore. Fell in love with real estate, moved to Florida, started visiting new developments and listings, took out her phone at every one of them, and just would do stories or go live. And in her first year, she sold 4 apartments.
Wow.
And she became known as like the Florida condo person. That was not possible, in my age, in my day. I cannot believe I'm already saying in my day. God, it's too early for that. It's too early for that. But seriously, when I was growing up in the industry, that just wasn't possible. You couldn't just go, the best version of that was a website, but like you had to get people to your website, whereas here, like, you already connected with these people. It's just about, so anyways, to those people watching, there are some people that think of social media as this like evil, whatever. And like there are negative implications to social media. We often have the fun conversation of these smartphones. Do they make life worse or better? Whatever the answer to that question is, they're here now. They're here now. It is what it is, right? And so, I implore those people that, especially if you are in business for yourself, like, if you're one of these people that, well, I don't really know what to post, I don't really know what stories, like, I don't know. I mean, God, go on YouTube, go on Google. I mean, it's so easy. But make it a part of your world to make sure that you're not only creating your brand, but continuing to highlight your brand and do it so on a consistent level. The thing that we've talked about the most with us, and, the best coaching we've gotten from Sally is that consistency outweighs everything else. It's like if you can have the best post in the world, but if it's once every 2 weeks, not really necessarily going to work. So actually, that's a really good transition, because I feel like I'm doing all the talking. I want to be doing all the learning. Let's assume that our audience is captivated by both of our pleas to get them to be on or more on social media. You are the expert. Can you give us some tips, some tricks, some to-dos, help guide?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I think it's really, building a strategy. Have something that really just helps you have a roadmap and then follow. That should be things like, what is your voice and tone for your brand, right? Once you've identified your brand, what are you communicating? And I think a big part of that with business and your own personal brand is, what do you want to speak about? What do you want people to know about you and learn from you when you share content? So coming up with those brand pillars, that can be that you're family oriented and you share things about your personal life and family. It could be all things real estate, and we that share things about properties and market facts and educating your sphere about the market and the industry. And maybe it's travel, right? We'll pull different things out of there, but making sure that you have outlined those content pillars, it will help you so much, because to your point, Eugene, it can be overwhelming to people. And so to be able to have pillars, oh, I'm doing something right now with my family, and that's one of those pillars I'd identify that I want to share with everyone. I now know I have something to share with what I'm doing. So that's sort of the first thing I would say, is make sure you give yourself a bit of a strategy and some tactical roadmaps to be able to follow. It will just help you in the long run. It becomes overwhelming. The other lens is, don't be afraid, and I say this to almost everyone I work with, to use these platforms. A lot of people, and anyone who's in my world will know, as a social media manager at times, a new app just came out. Meta just launched Thread. Umbrella, who Facebook.
Oh my God, it's like, how do you keep up with everything? Seriously.
I think doing your homework, speaking to it yourself, to understand what platforms make sense to you, because your audience will be in different places. So as an example, a lot of millennial people forget, I think when you hear the millennial term, they're in their 40s now. We're not just in our 20s. And so a lot of people now, we're home buyers. If we're talking real estate, we're sort of a very large audience now. Millennials and Gen Z are the largest audience now. Nation, knowing that, go where your audience is. So go to platforms like that may be more visual for showing off properties, right? People want property, don't copy. They want to see the beautiful imagery of a property. So I think it's doing your research also to find platforms that work best for you, and then don't be afraid to use them. Test features. One thing you will see is that these algorithms and platforms are constantly making updates. It can be very overwhelming, but the one thing I will say is, you cannot break them. Meaning, go ahead and try the live feature, try the full feature. Utilize these features that are given. And the one thing that's also going to do is help you in terms of engagement and connecting with your audience. And so I think that sometimes when we think social media, they get so focused on all of the little analytical things, they forget the social point of social media.
So good. That's so good.
So it's all about really connecting with your audience. And, don't be afraid to message people, comment on things. A lot of people use content that's engaging that they can save now. So Instagram actually has a feature very similar to Pinterest where you can make little category buckets in your own profile and save things. So maybe if it's homes, you can save a folder towards dream homes and home inspiration. That could be
I didn't know that.
tricks or fun facts. And as you see content, videos that are interesting like that, you can save them. So I think it's really utilizing features that be more social and engaged on platforms, because that's the entire purpose of them. We're a very, very connected world right now. It's super instantaneous. And so take advantage of the fact that, to your point, you can actually put one thing out that connects with a really large audience at one time. You don't, to your point, like you were before, have to individually send one by one by one. You can do one really interesting thing that you want people to know about you or your business, share that on social media, and that will touch people around the world and a bunch of different. So I think it's really just ensuring that you're using the social element of it and stay organic to yourself. Do things that really feels genuine to you. People will respond well to that over something that's way overly planned.
Yeah, oh man, all those are so good. All those are so good. I would just add, if you are trying to build your brand on social media, don't allow the followers and the likes and the impressions dictate the content. This is actually directly stealing from Gary Vee. He's been saying this for years. But if I was to go, listen, we do real estate. That's what we do. Every time we put up a post about a beautiful property, it could be a $4 million, $10 million penthouse, 0 likes. But if I put up a kid of my son, if I put up a post or a story of my son at kickboxing or me hugging my daughter or something with my wife at anniversary, blows everything out of the water. So, okay, obviously that's what's most important to me in my life, but I still need people to remember that I do real estate. So can't let the metrics, and like for anyone that knows me, we are obsessed with numbers and metrics and data and fact. But you can't let that drive. And the biggest one that I would say, so in the world of personal development, there's this distinction called the mind. It's not your mind necessarily, it's the mind. Because if we think about the thoughts we have on a regular basis, we didn't choose those thoughts. You're walking around your day and thoughts just pop up. So those aren't necessarily your thoughts. There's just thoughts produced by the mind as part of a mechanism. What tends to happen very often, I find, with social media, is people really get in their heads about, well, who wants to see me in the gym, or like who cares what I'm eating, or who cares where I'm traveling, or yada yada. And the fact is, you're right. It's not that they care. It's not that they're going to stop their day to pay attention to you, but we're all amused for each other. So, I was doing these selfie gym videos for a really long time. And people would come up to me and or write me, be like, oh, it's so motivational, whatever. And that was all cool. But despite getting that positive reinforcement, every single morning at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. or whatever time it would be, every morning, the mind produced the same thoughts. I would pick up my phone, I would flip it around, and every single morning, the thoughts would come in. Well, this is so stupid. You've done this story like 20 times already. Well, are you really going to be that guy in the gym, like doing a selfie story? Well, everyone's looking at you. Well, you're putting up these stories and people think you're silly. All these thoughts would come flushing in, and then I would actually do it. And then almost immediately there'd be a DM, oh my God, 5 a.m. again, I don't know how you do it, or whatever. And so if that story inspired even one person, then isn't that a service for each other to be constantly putting up, not for the purpose of bragging or showboating, which can't control that, but just to let people know what's possible without this feeling of fear or whatever. I think you mentioned authenticity, and I just want to double down on that. I think it's so important to be authentic and to just not worry about, it's funny because we're saying you're building a brand, and at the same time we're saying don't worry about public perception. But the truth is, the brand I would want to build and the brand I would recommend people to build is to attract like-minded people, right? And so if you focus on a brand that's only for profit, you'll be happy for a while, but a very short while, because then every single day you're going to be interacting with people that are have different values than you, different life worldly model than you, and then every day's gonna be miserable. And so like, I guess from lots and lots and lots of personal experience of doing this for myself and the company and working with people like you, I think like authenticity is so important. I think it's probably the most important, right?
It goes right back into that lens of social. I think exactly
Yeah,
what you were saying. Get afraid, and it makes sense. You're putting yourself sometimes vulnerably, like you mentioned to the that
that's right.
sharing. You put that out there, but I think at the end of the day, we are all human. We are all people. And to your point, being
That's
your
right.
most so critical to your brand, especially as a leader, and being able to share
Yeah,
these pieces of your life will, even if and that is still something, right? And even if you have a few people, I actually had someone I spoke to about this topic, and they said we see this one person who's posting all the time, and they're like, it almost comes off as annoying. And they said, but now we notice, whenever you go to a barbecue, that same sort of sphere of influence lens is there. They talk about this one person posting all the time, and they sort of sat there, and I looked at them and I said, but isn't that what we want for a brand, to keep yourself top of mind?
that's
That's
it. That's it.
the thing every day. Guess what? Who is being talked about? Who's being
That's
remembered? Who's
it.
being
That's
so
it.
that is so important with branding and with using these platforms. I always go back to the marketing rule of seven, which pretty much states that psychologically the average person has to see something at least 7 times before they retain it or act upon it. So that's
Mm,
right
yeah.
in media, that if you have a bunch of touch points throughout the day, that's going to hit a bunch of different people in a multitude of times, and your goal is to hit them a bunch of different times to be able to really remember you, remember your name, remember what it is you do and what it is you're passionate about and involved in, remember your brand. And so that's one of the reasons you do those things so much, and why it's actually impactful for your business and for your
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah, I'm game with that. Oh my God, there's that annoying guy that always does stories of himself in the gym. I need to go talk to him about the apartment I want to sell. I'm game. I'm good.
If it,
I'm good with that. I'll go good with that interaction. No, and it's funny because we social media is bad in the way of everyone always posts about what's great. And so it's easy to look at, it's easy to have that jealousy factor or comparison factor, whatever. So for those people that are using social, I say to you, don't, man, stay in your own lane. There's always somebody that makes more money than you, that's better looking you. Like, don't play the comparison game at any level. If it drives you, if you're one of these, like, I love competing, I love to win, fine, great. But like, don't go to the negative part of comparison where you're like down on yourself because someone has something, whatever. And I used to be like, the only thing you could put out there is things that make you look great. Very early in my branding career, I would have those thoughts. And the reality is, some of the content that we put out that's the most vulnerable is the stuff that people really remember you for the most. Like whether it be, I remember I did a beard for belly challenge. I was like having a hard time losing weight, and I made that a whole public thing. Excuse me. And my God, the following and the amount of messages I got on that was crazy. There was a period of my life where I was really experiencing a lot of anxiety. Like, I'd always experienced a high level of stress because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a go-getter. And I always put myself in positions of like, there's no going back. But there was a few things that happened earlier in my life that just, I wasn't sleeping, and I was having panic attacks. And that was embarrassing for me because like, I'm the guy that has it all together, that talks on mindset and whatever. And at first I felt almost embarrassed by it. And then I opened up about it. And my God, the onpour of like gratitude. Well, you know what? If you're experiencing this the way you are, it's okay for me too. And I'm not saying I'm like so special, but just being, I guess it goes back to authenticity. Just being your authentic self online. And people gravitate the most to genuinity and authenticity. If you just do you, right? And you don't worry about it. It's almost like a filtering out process, because the people that you don't want in your life, they'll naturally weed themselves out. And the people that are like you, that are also authentic, also your vibe, those people, it's almost like a magnet. So I guess ultimately, be authentic, do you, don't overthink it, don't worry about perfection. Don't think that brand means everything's amazing all the time. Like there's times we've lost business, but the way we handled the loss of the business, they would come back to us after and say, even though we didn't go with you the first time, we really appreciate the way you handled that. And so it didn't really work out here, but now here we go, whatever. So I think the way you carry yourself in general all the time matters. Well, we're about to run out of time here. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I get to do this often. I get to do this on Slack anytime I want. I get to have meetings. I get to do this a lot. I would just love, are there any final tips you would like to share for the audience today, or the audience, the 100,000 or so people that are going to see it when we get it out via email? Also for free. People, get on social media, do stuff, then email it out. Free 99 or whatever the $20 or $50 subscription is, or whatever it is. Any final tips, Sally? Any final tips for our folks out there?
I think it's just, I'll do a recap and leave one piece of advice. Of course, as we've really established, be your authentic self with your brand. Do what feels
Mm,
genuine, right? Dogs, kids, families, personal stories perform the best. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your branding. Remember that people need to see it multiple times. To your point, frequency is just important.
yeah.
And also just keep in mind when you do post things on social media, especially things that you want people to digest and really retain, you have about 3 seconds on social media before they scroll past your content, because it is oversaturated. There are a lot of people now being social and engaging and sharing content. So make sure, as an example, if you're sharing a video, you're doing things in the first action in the beginning, that hook to get someone, because you really only have that 3 seconds to capture someone before they may scroll past. So make sure
That's
that you're
it.
captivating as much as you are organic and personable and just very genuine across your platforms.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. And I would just add, my final tip would be, this is probably reflective of everything that I do or encourage in life. Do not wing it. Create a plan, plan your work and work your plan, refine, make it better, talk to experts. But ultimately, if you just try to wing it and if there isn't a calendar with some sort of strategy, with something, don't overcomplicate it. Like Mondays is motivation, Wednesdays is gym, Fridays is family or sports, or whatever it is you're into. Just give yourself, on these days, this is what I talk about. And then the procrastination kind of goes away too, because I was like, oh, it's Tuesday. Today is blah, or whatever it is. So, anyways, Sally, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time, folks. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you found value. If you're interested, Sally, if people are interested in finding you for advice, questions, to hire you, how could they find you?
Yes, of course. You can always, as we're talking about social media, feel free to send me a message here, knowing my account is linked. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Sally, Sally, Meli, M as in Eli. You can search me on LinkedIn and I'll pop right up by updating my page, or shoot me an email. My first name, last name, numbers 83@gmail.com. But thank you so much, Eugene, for having me today. It was great to talk to you about this, and hopefully people had some key takeaways.
Boom. Boom. Guys, have a good one, everybody.
Thank you.